Hey everybody, you're watching Cole the Corn Star. I accidentally made my farm lose $100,000 and today I'm gonna try to fix it. In order to fix the problem, I need to go on an 11-hour road trip, but before I can go on that, I need to get a little bit of work done first. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my parents' house. Roman and I are remodeling their old office into a bathroom so that way they can have one on the main floor of the house. And we are ready for construction, but we need to finish the plumbing first. This bathroom remodel is going to have 4 plumbing fixtures. There's going to be a toilet, a washing machine, a shower, and then there is going to be a sink. So our toilet is going to go over here, the washing machine is gonna go over where Roman is, the shower is gonna go over there, and then the sink is gonna go over here. And then when we jump down into the basement, the toilet is going to be here, washing machine's gonna be over there, shower is gonna be over there, and then the sink's gonna be over here. Before we can leave to fix our $100,000 problem, we need to finish hooking up the sewer lines, and then we also need to finish hooking up the water lines. We are going to be starting over in this corner on top of the ladder, up in this little dark cavity. This is where the washing machine drain line is going to go, so we're gonna start by doing some drilling. Oh, you dirty dog. We got her all notched out and stuff now. I got this dry fitted on there. It's gonna fit, so we're ready to throw some of this glue on, and then this will be done. Oh, it's strong. Woo!
You want me to blow in the pipe?
Yeah, thank you.
We're just gonna have to cut it.
Take a look. The drain line for the washing machine is hooked up. Next up, we're gonna finish hooking up right into the side of our stack right here. Roman, that's strong. This stack is gonna look a little interesting when we have it done, but it's gonna work. And it's gonna be a fun ride for anything inside of the pipe. We're doing a dual layer application with our glue. This is a primer Roman's putting on right now, so that's getting the surface already. He's doing both surfaces, both the male and the female. And once he gets that primed up, then we're gonna be putting the glue on it, and then you have a short amount of time to be able to get everything put back together. Otherwise, you run into issues. And then you're getting new pipe.
And I have a bag inside that elbow stuck in so we don't smell all the wonders of the sewer pipe. We just need to remember to pull it out once we're done.
How are you gonna pull it out now? Oh, you got one more to glue in. We're doing the messy job now. This is active sewer line. I did shut the water off and we flushed the toilet upstairs so we don't get a surprise on us when we have this open. We're gonna pull this Y out, and then we're gonna get everything glued up, and then we're gonna glue it all in, and we'll put everything back into place, and then this will be done. Oh, I just got juice on me. Gross. There you go. There we go, we got everything all hooked up. That's our little water slide, and so we're just kind of getting everything cleaned up now, and I think we're ready to start putting some water lines in. There it is. We're done down here. Now we have the fun part. Let's talk about the $100,000 mistake that I made on my farm. My family's farm raises corn and soybeans, and we run what's called a 50-50 rotation. A 50-50 rotation means that if I planted soybeans last year, like the field I'm standing in right now, that means it's gonna be corn this year. And then since this field was cornfield last year, that means it's gonna be a soybean field this year. All of our soybeans are planted under no-till conditions, which means we will literally come into this existing corn stock mat that we have out in the field, and we will plant them straight into this. So there is no tillage done whatsoever, AKA no-till. Planting soybeans, unlike planting corn, are super simple because we can just come in and plant right into this mat of trash because the soybeans are tough little boogers and they'll just work their way up inside of this, so we can just leave all of this here and we don't have to worry about it. And actually, this trash helps benefit the soybeans. Number one, since we don't have to do any tillage, it helps us increase our profitability on soybeans because we don't have to have a tractor out here, we don't have to pay for diesel fuel, repairs, or somebody to operate the tractor. We can just come in and plant into this. So it helps make us a few more dollars an acre. Number two, all of this trash on the ground acts like mulch. So it helps retain moisture underneath of it, so it keeps our soils nice and damp. Around here, we do not have any irrigation systems. We get all of our water from the sky. So if we have a nice no-till field with some nice coverage on it, it's gonna do a really good job of helping us hold on to a little bit more water. And then lastly, since this trash shades the ground, it helps prevent weeds from growing through it. We have been doing no-till soybeans for longer than I've been alive. So for at least 27 years, we have been planting our soybeans straight into standing corn stalks, and we've had pretty good luck doing it. So we decided, you know what, why don't we try doing some no-till in corn? This is where I have accidentally lost $100,000 because for basically the last 6 growing seasons, we have been trying to practice no-till corn. Before I dive into what is going on, we actually have seen some of the best yields we've ever had with no-till, but I feel like we're leaving some money on the table. So take this last year, for example. We had a farm do 265 bushels per acre. It was 100% no-till. Our 10-year average for the farm is 196 bushels per acre. So the fact that it did 265, that was one of the best yielding farms that we had ever had. But that farm is some of the highest quality soil that we have. It's in our top 3 best farms as far as the soil goes. And if that farm came up for sale, it would probably bring around $18,000 per acre. Where we had another farm that it's probably towards the lower end of what our farms are for quality of soil. If this farm came up for sale, it would probably bring around $12,000 per acre. And we did some tillage on that farm, and that farm did 286 bushels per acre. So the 265 did phenomenal, but the 286 on lower quality soil, it just blew it out of the water. So it's not that the 265 was bad, it's just compared to the 286, I feel like we're leaving some serious dollars on the table. This may sound a little weird, but it's not solely the yield that I'm looking at of the no-till versus the tillage that is making me feel like we are leaving dollars on the table. When I go into our no-till fields, I see problems that our tillage fields don't have. And so those problems, I feel like, are the difference between the 265 and the 286. So that's why I feel like we're leaving dollars on the table. The biggest problem that I see in my no-till fields is something called nutrient stratification. Since we are no-till, when they come and dry spread our fertilizer over the surface, all of that fertilizer that they put on sits on the surface because we're not doing any tillage to actually flip it underneath. So when we have fertilizer sitting on the surface, number one, our plants grow underground, so they're not able to get to all the fertilizer that's sitting on the surface. And then number two, when we do it year after year after year after year after year, eventually we just get a buildup of fertilizer in the top this much of our soil, and then all of a sudden 80% of our fertility is in the top this much, and then the other 20 is below that. So where our plant actually grows, it only has 20% of the fertilizer that's actually in the soil. So number one, we're not being as efficient with the fertilizer that we're buying, but number two, our plants are basically malnourished at times. Being completely transparent, I really like no-till. I think there are a lot of benefits from it, but I do have a big problem with nutrient stratification because we spend $100 per acre on our dry fertilizer for our corn. So we spend $100,000 per year on dry fertilizer for corn. So if I'm spending that much money, I want to get my money's worth out of it. I don't want to put it out there and have it not be able to be utilized. I want to be able to use it. And so that is my biggest problem with no-till. So one of the things that we've been trying to do to be able to still do no-till and get rid of our nutrient stratification is come in and do full tillage. So we're burying all of that fertilizer down nice and deep. And then once we've done that, then we're coming in and just doing no-till for a couple years after that. And then once we start to get that stratification layer again, then we come in and do tillage again. It's not a perfect system, but it has allowed us to be able to get the benefits of non-nutrient stratification while still being able to basically practice no-till, at least a majority of the time. How much money does nutrient stratification leave on the table? I really don't know. We started destratifying 1 year ago, so I only have 1 year of data to go off of, and we saw a really nice yield response to the destratification, but the problem is I don't really know if it came from the destratification or if it came from the fact that we had really good weather and we got in the field super early to plant, which makes a huge difference. We also came in with the tillage and introduced a bunch of carbon into the growing environment as well as oxygen and got rid of compaction. And then we also had the fertilizer mixed in at the same time. So, I mean, I'm sure it was a combination of all three of those things. Was 80% of the lifting from the destratification? I honestly really don't know. Since I cannot put my finger on how much money soil stratification costs us, I can't use that towards the $100,000 that we accidentally lost. We actually have another problem. This little guy is a soil penetrometer, and I use it to measure compaction in our fields. The way that it works is we have this little tip, we stick that down into the soil, and then we push on the handles until our pressure gauge on the top goes to the red zone. In a field that has no compaction, I can sink this thing down to the handle and I will never hit the red zone. In a tillage field, I typically find that we get to about right there, and in the no-till fields, we get to there. The soil penetrometer's red zone starts at 300 pounds per square inch, and what that represents is an environment where roots physically cannot grow through it because it's too hard. In the areas that I could only stick the probe into the ground this far, I dug up some roots, and what I found was the plants could grow down in the top 2 inches, and then once they hit the compaction layer, it was kind of like hitting the top of this table. They would just then grow parallel to the ground, which made it where our roots were not very deep, so they were not getting down to the water that was down below. So if we had a dry year, our plant was in a world of hurt. Is this soil compaction a problem for us? Yes. How much of a problem is it? How much does it cost us? I really don't know. It's kind of like soil stratification, but what I do know is it's not the $100,000 problem that I've been talking about. Our $100,000 problem has nothing to do with what is in the soil in our no-till fields. It has to do with what is on top of the soil, and it comes from our combine, and it is streaking. When we plant soybeans, we want that mat of trash on the field because when we plant the beans, they're tough little guys, and they can work their way up through it, and they will grow just fine. But corn, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. We cannot have a lot of trash over the top of that corn plant because if there's too much, that little plant will actually grow up into the trash and then it'll turn back around and go underground and die. And then you don't have a corn plant. So we have to be very careful on the amount of trash that we have on the surface, especially in our no-till fields. Now, what we are running into with our $100,000 problem is our combine, once it goes through the field, all the trash gets kicked out the back of the machine and it gets spread out on the ground, and it's supposed to be spread out evenly, but we have been fighting our combine because it wants to leave these 2 4-foot wide strips right inside of the wheels on both sides of the machine where the trash is about that thick, where outside of those windrows the trash is like that thick. So in those 4-foot wide areas, when we come and plant our corn into there, the stand inside of those is not very good. And then what we've also been running into, since there's so much trash, that trash almost acts like a big sponge. So when we come and put our nitrogen onto the plants, it's like that nitrogen gets absorbed into that big sponge and then it doesn't work its way down into the plants. And then when we're looking at the fields with the drone, we can see these bright green strips going across the field from nitrogen deficiencies. After comparing our trash mat area versus the non-trash mat area, conservatively speaking, I'm coming up with a 5 bushel per acre loss caused by our trash mat. And we've been doing this for the last 4 years, so that means we have left 20,000 bushels of corn out in the field. that we did not get paid for. And if we use a $5 cash price average, that is $100,000 worth of corn caused by our trash mat. So we need to get rid of that trash mat. No more trash mat. We need to be putting that money in our pocket, not leaving it out in the field. So what can we do about it? Well, that's what we're gonna go on our little road trip for. And I have been on the road for 5.5 hours, and we are just about to our destination. We are in the middle of Nebraska right now. Ravenna, Nebraska, I believe is the name of the town. And we are going to be looking at a vertical tillage implement. We're about 10 minutes away. We just pulled onto the gravel. We are in the dry country of Nebraska. We're getting out of the pivot area, and things are starting to get a little bit hilly. And they also have extremely weird gravel roads compared to what we have at home. These things are kind of like sand in a way. The implement that we are looking at is a Kraus accelerator. This one is going to be a 2012 model. It's 5.5 hours away, but it seems like it is a pretty good deal. Their asking price seems reasonable, and it was also 100% rebuilt a season ago, which a rebuild is about $15,000. So based on the ones we've found, we think this one could be a potential buy for us. One of the downsides of this unit is it has sat outside for its life. They don't have sheds, but they sent us a bunch of pictures and things look pretty good. So we're just getting ready to pull into the driveway here. So I guess here goes our inspection. I don't know, what would we call this?
Inspection. We're inspecting. And if it fails, well, it's a waste of a day.
Just pulling up to the place now. Looks like he's got a nice metal supply there in his grove. So here it is. It's all folded up right now. Cooper and I did a walk around inspection on it. We've been checking all of the joints, all of the pins, all of the wheels, wheel bearings, hoses, all of the gangs. We've been spinning everything. Everything seems to be pretty straight and true. Nothing seems to be bent, cracked, or broken. For sitting outside for its entire life, the paint on it actually is not very bad at all. The stickers and stuff are still fully intact, so they look really good. We're unfolding it right now, so that way we can actually see how everything lays out once it's going to be down on the ground. This is a 40-foot wide unit, so it's going to be really big. We did notice that there is a bearing that is out right here on the back. So when we wiggle this one, I believe it's this one. It's one of these. Yeah, it's this one right here. So that bearing is bad right there. It's pretty common for these to go out on the back. It did have all new blades a season ago, all new bearings a season ago, and all new tires. So mechanically, this thing should be pretty rock solid, but we're just doing our inspection, making sure that there's nothing we're not missing. And holy cow, this thing is it's huge. When equipment sits outside, usually the hoses will be the first thing to show some wear. They'll start to get weather checked up and cracked from the sun, but these look like they're in really good condition. And then the stickers are also another telltale sign. They'll get all cracked and then faded and you won't be able to read them anymore, but these look good. So I don't think that the sun has really done much damage on this at all. The other thing you gotta look out for when things are sitting outside and they're all folded up, all of the bearings and stuff are exposed, so when rain gets into them, it wears them out faster. And when it sits outside all the time, it gets quite a bit of rain in them. Now, around here, with it being dry land, not a lot of rain, so we definitely wouldn't get the wear like what we would get at home. I see one spot right here with no paint on it. I don't know what happened right there. That's the only spot I've seen like that. The other side does not match, so I don't know what happened there. There's a little bit of flaking, but not like the other side, so I'm gonna take a second look at that. Sometimes when stuff goes through the factory too, it just gets hit with a different coat of paint, and so that may be a thing, but I think we have a cover here. I'm gonna take that off, see what's underneath. It must just be the paint on this, because underneath the cover, we have absolutely no problems. It actually remarkably clean. Overall on the inspection, we are keeping an eye on the hoses and making sure that none of them are leaking. Everything seems to be pretty tight on this. I'm not seeing any hydraulic drips anywhere. And then we're also looking at all the joints to see if anything is cracked or if anything has been re-welded or repainted, which we have not seen anything yet. And then I'm also spinning blades and making sure that they spin. I'm listening for creaks, and then we're seeing if they have any play back and forth, and then we're also looking at blades to see if they wobble when they go. Overall, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with this unit. It's big, looks like it's built really nice, it's in good condition, it's a little sun faded, but honestly, not bad at all. We're setting her down on the ground now. Basically at this point, we're just kind of nitpicking on stuff, but overall, this thing looks really good. So now I guess it's more of a price negotiation point. What are you thinking for price?
I don't know, his son told me 50 was bottom, but 46 or 48.
After inspecting the accelerator for about an hour, Cooper and I were able to identify a few things that the accelerator needs before it's field ready. It needs a wheel seal cap on one of the wheels. We found a tire that has a slash in it, so that needs to be replaced. There were a couple bearings that were out, and then the biggest one was where the hitch pin drops through at the front. The hole that the hitch pin goes into was a bit oblong shaped, so there was a lot of slap in the hitch pin, so it just makes it kind of jerky pulling down the road and through the field, which we don't want. So that needs to be replaced. So Cooper was able to use those things as a bit of a negotiating tool, and originally they were asking $54,900 for the accelerator, and we ended up picking it up for $48,000. And unfortunately, since it was located 400 miles away from us, we were not able to pull it home with the pickup, so we're gonna have to use a semi, and it's gonna be a couple weeks before a semi is gonna be able to get it out there, so we don't have it on the farm yet, but we did get it purchased. Back to our $100,000 striping problem, the accelerator is the tool that we are going to try to utilize to fix it. The accelerator is classified as a vertical tillage implement. In the farming world, there are 3 tillage families. There is no tillage, aka no-till, there is horizontal tillage, and then there is vertical tillage. The no-till family is the easiest one to remember because it's right there in the name, no-till. We're not doing any tillage to the soil, we're just leaving it as is. But when it comes to vertical tillage and horizontal tillage, things can get a little bit confusing. So what I like to do is for vertical tillage, I think straight and pointy, and for horizontal tillage, I think flat and dull. With horizontal tillage, the flat, dull implement gets drug across the surface of the soil horizontally. That's why they call it horizontal tillage. And the soil rolls over the front of it, kind of like an ice cream scooper. The rolling action is the part that actually causes all of the mixing, and that is how the tillage is performed on horizontal tillage. And then vertical tillage, since it's straight and pointy, instead of rolling the dirt over, it lifts and fractures, so it's a completely different mixing process. In a side-by-side comparison, both families turn the dirt, but they're doing very different things. It's no secret that farm equipment is heavy, and tillage implements are definitely not the exception. They can weigh as much as 10, 20, or even 30,000 pounds. All of that weight gets transferred down to the soil by the part that is in contact with the soil, and when it comes to our vertical tillage and our horizontal tillage, as we can see, the horizontal tillage has significantly more contact with the soil than the vertical tillage. In other words, since the entire area of the horizontal implement is touching the ground, everything beneath it is subject to soil compaction, where when it comes to the vertical tillage implement, we have significantly less area on the ground, so the only parts that can get compacted are the parts directly below it, and then everything that is in between is completely unbothered. The most common examples of horizontal tillage would be plowing, disking, and field cultivating. And then vertical tillage would be something like a ripper, a chisel, or a straight-bladed disc, which is what the accelerator is. I do have a couple examples. This is a ripper shank, which belongs to the vertical tillage family. And what we do with this is we can run it about this deep underground. So assume that this is ground level, with that being the sky up there. And this thing is a compaction breaking machine, because let's say we have a compaction layer that's right here. Since our ripper point is below the compaction layer, that compaction layer is going to get caught up on this part right here, and it's going to get lifted and it's going to get fractured. So this would be an example of super aggressive vertical tillage, but it is a form of vertical tillage. And then right here, I have two different blades. The one that is closest to me is a traditional disc blade. This is an example of horizontal tillage. It is concaved, so it's a little bit like a bowl, and this kind of moves through the soil like an ice cream scoop. With a traditional disc blade like this is considered horizontal tillage because it doesn't run straight, it actually runs at an angle. And when it runs through the field, it leaves a little path like this behind it. And there's a disc blade about every 6 inches. So if an area is disked, the entire area underneath of the disc looks like this. It may be all soft and fluffy up on the top, but if you dig that back, that area that the disc blade touched is still there. And then when it comes to the straight bladed disc, this is vertical tillage because it runs straight. It does not run at an angle, and when we run it straight, it just leaves a nice little cut in the soil like that. For a little side by side, the traditional horizontal tillage disc blade definitely disturbs up way more than the straight bladed vertical tillage, but we're also subjecting the ground to potentially more compaction because it's touching more area, where the vertical tillage blade, while it's not disturbing as much, it's also not subjecting the ground to nearly as much compaction. From 1970 to the mid-2000s, these traditional disc blades were extremely popular, and then around 2010, these straight bladed vertical tillage style ones came out, and now you're starting to see a lot more of the vertical tillage style ones than the traditional style ones, but there still are a lot of these traditional ones out there. I was pretty curious as to what they sell brand new on the lots, because honestly, I haven't paid attention to this. So I'm at my local Case dealership right now, and what I'm seeing here is sort of interesting. I'm standing in what I would call the horizontal tillage lot. We have 2 discs, and then we have a field cultivator. One thing that is completely different about these newer discs is they have these fluted blades on them. So they wave in and out, and then they also have this extremely sharp edge. Oh, I think I just cut my finger. But they also have this wavy edge that also goes in and out as well. These fluted disc blades are becoming really popular because they're super aggressive and they help get a little bit more mixing action. Our accelerator also has these type of blades, and as you can imagine, when they go through the soil, they definitely disturb up more than what a straight blade would. And then over here, we have a field cultivator. This is a little bit different than the bladed stuff because these have little shovels on them. And so the soil just comes over these and it just gets laid over. Now I know this is straight and pointy, but we do have a lot of surface area on these points, and then there is 6 rows of points on these. So there's no spot in between that gets missed. So that's why this is considered horizontal tillage. And then this is what I would call a dual unit. We have the big disc blades up front, so horizontal tillage is being performed up here, and then behind the disc blades we have the big shanks that are going deeper than the disc blades and breaking up all the compaction that they would make. And then we're performing vertical tillage back here, and then we got the rolling baskets in the back to smooth out all the big clods. This unit is called a disc ripper because we have the disc blades on the front, and then we have the ripper shanks on the back. And this is actually what we have been using on our farm to help get rid of our nutrient stratification, as well as rip up our compaction layers. And compared to the field cultivator, we have a lot of space between the shanks, and then the shanks also have a different shape on them, so that way there's less surface area actually touching the ground that would be bearing the weight of the machine. And then they also have a straight bladed disc, so this would be the vertical tillage style disc. This would be like the accelerator that we just bought, so it's got the fluted blades on. Like, this is pretty much identical to our accelerator. It's just a different brand. This one is a little bit smaller, but the blades run straight. They do not run at an angle, so they're slightly different shaped, but they are fluted, so we should get a little bit more stirring action with these. And then over here we have the no-till lot. They must have just got a new shipment. You can see the tracks coming in right here, but these have been around for a really long time. There honestly hasn't been a lot of changes with them, but they're actually pretty decent looking units, and they can work really well if you have the right systems in place. But yeah, look at that thing. Absolute Beautiful. And then over here in the used section, we have a straight bladed vertical tillage disc, and then we have a horizontal tillage disc, and then we have another horizontal tillage disc. Now that I've covered the conservation benefits of no-till, nutrient stratification, compaction, and our striping out in the field, why did we buy a vertical tillage implement, and how is it going to help us solve our problem? The reason why we bought the accelerator is because we need to manage this mat of residue that we have in our soybean stubble. We need to get this thinned out. The only way that we can feasibly manage our soybean residue out in the fields is through tillage. So this brings us to the question of why did we choose a vertical tillage tool over a horizontal? From approximately 1960 until 2015, our farm ran a traditional horizontal tillage disc, and it gave us a ton of compaction. Compaction we are still fighting to this day. And then on top of that, the traditional disc tends to leave the ground a little bit rough. So then you have to come in with a field cultivator to smooth everything out. So then we have an extra pass in there, and then things start just getting more expensive. And not only that, a traditional disc is super aggressive, and it makes soybean stubble look like this. You bury almost all of it, and this makes us super susceptible to erosion. I have a prime example of bare soil erosion right here. We had an old pile of junk here when we got it picked up last summer, and the grass has not started to grow here yet. And in the few rains that we have gotten, we already have a little bit of water erosion right here. So all these little gullies that are cut, that is from water, and that water carries the silt down, and you can see where it's settled out here out in the field. So this is a small scale. If we get this up on this big hill, it works its way all the way down to the creek, and once it goes to the creek, then it goes to a river, and then it goes to the Mississippi River, and then it goes into the ocean. We don't want our soil in the ocean, we want it in our fields. So for those reasons, we chose to go down the vertical tillage path. But another thing that we are doing on top of the vertical tillage is we are also changing up the spreader system on our combine. So this combine behind me has what's called the old style spreaders on them. They are these discs that go horizontally to the ground, and then the new style spreaders are like the ones that are on this combine. And that is what we have had on our combine, and our windrows come right underneath of these things, and then we don't get a lot of spreading out of the sides. So we actually just found a kit that allowed us to be able to take this old one off and then put the new one on. Right? That sounds kind of weird saying we took the new style off to put the old style back on, but it seems like the old styles work so much better. So if our goal is to slow down nutrient stratification, minimize compaction, get rid of our streaking in the fields, all while still retaining some of the residue on the surface so that way we're not susceptible to erosion, how do we do that? Well, we feel an accelerator is the perfect tool for us to use to be able to accomplish all of those things. We are going to be running the accelerator about 2 inches deep, so it's going to help us get that fertilizer right off of the surface, and it's going to help us bring it down a little bit, so it's going to help slow down that nutrient stratification. Since the blades run straight instead of at an angle, we are minimizing the compaction that we're putting on the soil. And then the accelerator is just aggressive enough where it will come into this mat that we will have, and it will chew it up just enough where it will get us looking like this. So we have some nice dirt showing, we're thin enough where we can plant into it, and then also we still have enough residue here where this is going to help protect us from erosion. With the accelerator, we do need to be very careful. This is one of the problems that I have with vertical tillage. So this would be a soil profile of the VT. We have a little bit of trash up on top, and then we have some bare ground in between, and all the trash that was on top gets buried into the top area where we are running the vertical tillage. And this is also where we plant our corn seeds. So if we do an area too deep and we start spreading this trash into where our seed actually sits, our seed will touch these bits of trash, which is not good. We want them to be completely surrounded in soil like they are in the no-till. So this is one of the really nice things with no-till. All the trash is on top, so you don't have to worry about any of that trash touching your seed. But with the VT, we just need to be very careful not to go too deep. To be completely honest, I am not a big fan of the straight bladed vertical tillage implements because of the trash getting into the seed bed issue. You only get one chance to set your seed to bed correctly, and if you got trash in there, it makes it a whole lot harder to do. So we just need to be very careful with that. But we do have a problem on our farm, and that is the striping, and we need to get that addressed. That has cost us $100,000 over the last few years. So that is priority number one, and the vertical tillage implement is going to help us do that. The only way that we can truly be able to get a nice clean seed bed and still have the erosion protection is through strip till, which our farm is not ready for strip till yet. So the VT is a good stepping stone between the no-till and the strip till. And so we're gonna be running the VT for a little while. We're gonna see how it works. We really don't know, but we are optimistic based off what we've seen. We think it's going to work really well. So I guess here goes us into a new chapter and hopefully into a much more profitable farming operation.